For a long time, I didn't know how I would get back to me. And I remember this summer for the first time actually thinking about suicide and thinking about killing myself because I didn't know what life was outside of the means of my relationship, outside of the means of like just bad health and just everything I was dealing with. And so for me, like it got really rough and it got really dark. But one thing I know is that God always told me throughout that entire process, make sure you grieve well because I need you to heal well. Welcome to The Inner Circle. This episode is sponsored by M Club, co-working space by day, event space by night. This space is perfect for your upcoming celebrations, whether it's a small intimate gathering, a dinner, celebrating a milestone, or looking to do a corporate event. This is the space where you want to be. It's modern, chic, minimalistic, so you can really have fun with your creativity. Also, if you are an entrepreneur, small business owner, or looking to just get out the house and get away from that home office, M Club is a co-working space really set for you. From amazing amenities to a personal gym and having on-site chefs to really feed your needs for lunch, snacks, whatever it is, they've got you covered. So come on in, check it out today, and book your tour at hello@mworldclub.com. We're back. I can't even say that with a straight face. I'm so sorry. Y'all, it is The Inner Circle and we are back. Well, as you can see, this time around, it is just me and we have a lot to cover. It's been a minute. To be honest, we didn't really think we'd be coming back here. Like we thought it was one and done, 4 episodes in and out. All right, Lord, I obeyed you. We're good. Let's move on. But then life happened and 2023 happened. And year 29 happened, and here we are. For those of you who are new here, welcome to The Inner Circle. It is a space where we amplify the voices of sisterhood and the BIPOC community through open conversations where we are really just delving into topics that are otherwise not spoken about in our community. And so I wanted to formally welcome you, for those who are coming for the first time, and say what's up to those of you who are back for the second time around. We are here. Now, the Inner Circle is going to look a lot different this season or this time around. There has been a lot of changes that has happened over the last 12 months, and I want to get into it. I want to share that with you guys. So here we are. I wanted to talk about just how the Inner Circle came to be and just how we got here. So when I first started the Inner Circle, it was meant to be a safe space for women initially. And though that is super important to me, like legacy is always the goal. So I didn't want to exclude the men because, you know, they be getting in their feelings sometimes. But also they're a huge part of what legacy looks like for our community and our family. So I really wanted to kind of do an intro episode here, sharing a bit about me. And so here we go. I don't even know where to start, but if I could think back on where everything in my life went left, I would say it was right around the time I did the Woman Evolve podcast with Pastor Sarah Jakes Roberts. And that was a really big moment in my life. The thing about that moment is it didn't really come with ease, and it came with a lot of pushback spiritually. And so if we go back, that was last year, I would say, maybe January. I was driving to Chicago, sick as a dog with the flu, and I was listening to the podcast, and she had mentioned that if you wanted to be a guest, just, send in a little email. And I heard a voice so clearly say to me, write that email. And I said, no. period. I said no. And I avoided writing that email for 5 months. And when I finally submitted, I was listening to the podcast like 2-3 weeks later, and they're just like, oh, actually, we want a video. And I was just like, no, there's no way. And I literally I kept saying, no, I'm not doing this. This is not what I want to do. Even though it kind of is something I wanted to do, but we'd be lying sometimes. So there's that. And I remember I was working one of my clients' events, and my videographer was there, and God was just like, I gave you the resources. So the only thing stopping you from doing what I asked you to do is you. And how many of us know that there is oftentimes where there may be trials and tribulations, but sometimes we're the problem. So I put my videographer into the room, and I recorded that video one time. It was a one-shot thing. Here we go, press play. And I really just spoke through that entire, the video one time. And I repeated myself, and I was super nervous, and you can hear it when you watch it back. But either way, I obeyed. Not willingly and not timely, but I obeyed. And lo and behold, a couple months later, I think it was around July, I got a call back that they wanted to have me on the podcast. So I did a phone interview, and the phone interview, they told me, okay, your episode is gonna be in August. So I'm like, okay, bet. But around that time, I started to have just like physical issues that were happening with me, and I didn't really have answers. So when it was time for me to get my topic, they were like, oh, we're gonna be talking about nurturing your body. And I was just like, first of all, I ain't been in the gym in 6 weeks. Like, I haven't been in the gym in a while. I wasn't in the best place, but I was just like, all right, well, this is gonna be interesting. And then they pushed back the date. Within that time frame, I went to the doctors and I got checked up, and I was kind of nervous, but I just kind of trusted the process. I had to do an ultrasound, I had to do some blood work, and I got a call from Sarah Jakes' people, and they pushed the podcast again to October because of everything that was going on with Women Evolve, if you know, and TD Jakes passing the torch. It was a whole thing. But anyways, and in that time frame, I found out that I had PCOS and that I had fibroids. Now, people will be like, oh, that's so common. I'm just like, yeah, not for me. It's not a thing here. I'm not used to those kind of, like, I wasn't used to dealing with anything fibroids in my family. It was not in my bloodline that I know of. And PCOS was a whole new thing for me. So when the doctor gave me that diagnosis, I just was out of my mind, because in addition to that, he had told me that he had found a mass on the left side of my body between my kidney and my spleens, and he didn't know what it was. Y'all, it took 8 months for me to get that MRI, and 8 months for me to live with the idea of not knowing whether or not I had cancer, because they said it could be cancerous. And in that moment, life just started to unwind. Like, I went through, if I'm gonna be honest, I went through like a little bit of a depression. I didn't even tell my family for 3 months. I was really quiet about it. But in the midst of all of this, I thought love found me. And I was like, you know what? I know things are going rough, but I'm gonna just try to keep on working out and, doing what I can to just stay healthy. And I was introduced to love. So I thought. Listen, what they don't tell you about love is that it's a risk. R-I-S-K. And for me, it was a risk that I took, and it didn't turn out in my favor. I had found out throughout this entire process, while battling my health, going into year 29, which nobody warned me about, was gonna be the hardest year of my 20s. For y'all thinking like, oh, 21, 25, no. It's 29, because when you're on the cusp of going into your 30s, something happens in you, something changes. And yeah, it was really rough for me. And so battling my health issues, battling with my relational issues, ended up having dealt with a narcissist and just going through all of that. 2023 for me really rocked me to my core. And the truth of the matter is it really taught me that the real purpose in life is going through that process. Like, I realized in the midst of that I lost who Amanda was. And nobody told me that that was going to be the case. For somebody who is an identity advocate, who loves to empower people to find their voice and to own their voice, child, I lost mine. Like, I didn't know who I was. I didn't know why I was here anymore. Like that relationship and just my health issues were just rocking me left, right, and center. And I really didn't know if I was gonna make it. Hold on. Yeah, this year was rough. And this summer, like, it should have been a really good time. My sister was getting married. So many great things were happening in my family. And I was just a walking vessel. Like, I was an empty shell, just living. And I remember for the first time in a long time, I said I wasn't gonna cry, and then I told the cameraman I was gonna cry, but here we are, and now I'm crying. For a long time, I didn't know how I would get back to me. And I remember this summer for the first time actually thinking about suicide and thinking about killing myself, because I didn't know what life was outside of the means of my relationship, outside of the means of like just bad health and just everything I was dealing with. And so for me, like, it got really rough and it got really dark. But one thing I know is that God always told me throughout that entire process, make sure you grieve well, because I need you to heal well. And a lot of times when we go through hurt and we go through traumatizing seasons in our life, we just try to rush through the grieving season. And we really just try to rush through the healing season. And we think, oh, 3 months is gone and I'm good and I'm healed. But nobody talks about the repercussions of that. Like, if you rush your grief and you rush your healing, you're gonna look up one day and realize you've casted a shadow, or you've put up a gate where there wasn't supposed to be one. And sometimes we avoid feeling certain emotions for fear of missing out or for fear of reliving that pain. But I realized that it was in my lowest moments and in my darkest hours, like, that's when I found the peace of God. And I discovered peace that passes all understanding this year. If I knew nothing else, y'all, I discovered what peace really looks like. And it was really hard for me. And I realized that that's where my identity lied. It wasn't in when things were going good and when things were going great and when I had control of things. It was when I relinquished control, what I leaned on and what my foundational principles were that kept me. It was knowing that my imperfect moments were what made my journey mine. And I always used to say this growing up, like, Lord, whatever my children are gonna go through, let me go through it, because I don't want them to have a rough life. Now, sometimes I kind of want to take that prayer back, because life has been really, really hard. And I definitely want to share with y'all some things that I've really learned over these last 2 decades, because we weren't learning nothing the first 10 years. Like, they did set us up, and in the trauma that I encountered in my first 10 years did play a huge role in some of the walls that I've built and that I've had to tear down now in my 20s. But I really want to share certain things that I've learned. And honestly, one of the main things that I realized was that I was a runner. I'm a runner. I'm a runner learning how not to run. Like, when things get hard, I'll fight until I'm done fighting, and then I'm running. Like, it's weird. Like, it's fight and flight for me. And that looks like fighting for a relationship that you know is finished, but rushing through your healing process. That looks like, fighting for a contract that you know you're worthy of, and then just closing the door and running away from that service or that business as a whole. It's like, I have this fight and flight response that just didn't work for me. Like, it kept me, because there's certain things that you kind of need through certain seasons. But after a while, it was just like, hold on, this what's the word I'm looking for? Unhealthy. This is not healthy. And it's like I had to unlearn a lot of things that I've learned over the course of my 20 years that I can recall in year 29. And I allow myself to go through that process because oftentimes we like to run from that. But if you don't allow yourself to go through the process, you cannot reach the goal and what you actually want. Life isn't always about perfection. It's actually about process. It's about how you handle the hard seasons. It's about how you handle the moments where you feel like you can't get through. Like, what do you lean on to? What is your source? And for me, like, my source is God. Like, I don't know about other people, and sometimes, you know, we have addictions that we fight through, but at the end of the day, the one source that I knew I had that would sustain me, that will hold me, and that will keep me up, it was God. Because grieve well, heal well, no, I would rush through that process. But I decided in year 29 that I wasn't gonna rush that anymore. And I was gonna take my time. So when everybody was outside this summer, I was inside. I was doing the inner work. And the thing about when you actually trust the process and you lean on a foundation that's bigger than you is you will always get the time back. Like, when I tell you the things that I thought I was missing out on this summer, God gave me back the time. Like, what people had to do, what it took people 6 months to do, it took me 3 weeks. The connections it took people all year to build, it took me a month. It was like there was recompense, and I got time back. Like, we think in healing, we're losing time, but the truth is you're getting your time back and you're getting your identity back. So that's something that I really wanted to make sure that I express. Like, healing and grieving well is super important. And I really realized also that the depth of my trauma and grief and my healing, it all had to do with root work. Now, nobody talks about that. That's what healing and grieving well means. It's doing that root work, getting to the root of why you are the way you are, why you respond the way you respond. A spoiler alert or disclaimer, my default response is pride. My mentor knows this. Y'all gonna see her later. My root response, like, it's pride. And the pride is really like, it's by force. So because me, I don't want to be sensitive. I don't want to be vulnerable. I don't want you to be able to reach me or affect me or hurt me. Even though you have, you will not know. You will never know that you hurt me. That was what my root response was. Like, my response to being hurt, my response to being let down, my response to being lied on. Like, it was pride. Like, you not gonna catch nothing but these pride hands, because I don't want to feel that pain. I don't want to feel that. And it always comes from the inner circle. Interesting. But the truth of the matter is like, that is what love is. That's why love is a risk. Because at the end of the day, you will always get hurt. I heard somebody say yesterday, I think I was watching a sermon, and he said, if you're afraid of getting hurt, then you don't want to be loved. Because at the end of the day, that's what love is. Like, love always comes with hurt. And it's about how you respond to that hurt and just maturing in that area. And I had to mature. I had to grow up. And it was uncomfortable. Because why? I want to stay broken. That's what I thought. But it doesn't get us anywhere. It didn't get me anywhere. And so, yeah, I really pray that, like, the root work for me is what I'm focused on for the rest of 2023, because this is recorded in 2023, and for the remainder of 2024. Like, it's getting to the roots of why we are the way we are. Because once we can get to the root, then we can realign our fruit and our seed so that our fruit can be plentiful. That's where we go. Now, this episode is sponsored by the one and only Meraki Mix. She is a local Toronto-based Black-owned business serving us island drinks from near and far. Y'all need to try this. She's got 4 amazing flavors, so check her out on Instagram to learn more about these flavors. So one of the things I really wanted to touch on in this episode was what Amanda means. And it's funny because I discovered this a couple years ago. And when I saw what it meant, I was just like, well, this is funny because like I struggle with this area the most. And so Amanda means worthy of love or lovable. And when you use it in the biblical translation, worthy of love, i.e., worthy of God. And I have struggled with love, both inwardly and outwardly, for a long time. And I realized that that was an area of attack for me. Like, it was the idea that I would never be truly loved, or that I was never worthy of what love is. And what I realized was that the desire for love was my weakness relationally and even in friendships, but that was because I failed to embrace it inwardly and I failed to embrace it upwardly. So therefore it failed to translate externally. Like, it's like a whole paradigm. Like, if I don't embrace it from the source of love, and then I can't then in turn embrace it for myself, how did I expect to achieve healthy love externally? And it's not even always about healthy love, because this is the truth about family. Rarely is love healthy. At the end of the day, it teaches you the capacity of love. And I struggled for a long time with loving Amanda. And it was so weird because I love God. But it was just like, what is it in me that won't embrace love for myself? And what I realized, I think this was when I was about 26, I realized I loved God, but I wasn't vulnerable enough with him for him to love me back. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's just like, when you love somebody, but then you give them your representative, you don't give them the opportunity to see the raw, ugly, bad, fearful sides of you. Even though he already knows all those things, I wasn't vulnerable enough to give him that. So I could never feel that love back. And I realized, like, I'm the problem. Like, it's not in a negative way, but like, I was the problem. And I was like, okay, Amanda, the way you want love relationally with that man, or from that relationship, or from your daddy, your mommy, I love my parents and my parents love me, but I could not receive love because I felt like my flaws wouldn't be lovable. And I know that's something that people, like, we struggle with sometimes in life. We struggle with feeling like, oh, I'm worthy of this just because, like, but that will really taint how you view yourself, and then that will then in turn taint your identity. And I realized the identity crisis for me this year, I realized this year that my identity crisis was that I lost what love was, because the situation I had come from, imperfection wasn't accepted. It wasn't embraced. It wasn't loved, and it was manipulated. So I had to perform in order to feel worthy of love. And God was just like, well, I don't want you to do that with me. That is not my idea of how I exude love and what I say love is. And we know 1 Corinthians 13, it talks about all the things that love is: patient, kind. And sometimes when you read through that, you realize it's telling you it's all of these things because you're going to encounter the opposite of those things. So if it's patient, it's because somebody's going to make you very impatient. If it's kind, it's because somebody's going to be mean. If it keeps no record of wrong, it's because you are going to be hurt. Okay? It's like seeing the back end of that scripture is just like, wait, hold on. And it taught me that every part about me, even though, yes, when it's the negative parts of you, we should try to improve those areas. But even as I am worthy of love. And that is a terminology that I am still coming to terms. I'm still coming to terms with that. And it's a journey. And I'm not ashamed about it, nor am I mad about it, because when you're honest with yourself, when you actually have self-love, other people's opinions don't matter. And sometimes we struggle with trying to please people. and trying to show up the way that we feel like we need to show up, or trying to outperform, or just really perform for others. But I realized that there is nothing more rich and more valuable and more lovable than my authentic self. And it's because that's who I get to bring to my Father. So I have gotten to a place where I'm embracing Amanda. I'm embracing being worthy of love. And I'm really excited for what that's gonna look like, because it sets a new standard. You know, it makes you see yourself differently, and it makes you hold yourself to a different standard, so that you won't accept things all the time from people. And don't get me wrong, like, there's different kinds of love. We know about that, eros, agape, all of that. But I'm learning that, I'm in a season where I need to accept the fact that I am worthy. I am worthy of love, period. Now, the last thing I want to touch on is transitions. As somebody who is currently in a transition, and I mean the fight of my life, I am in a transition. I wasn't prepared. Because, you know, when we think about transition, it oftentimes comes with transformation. And transformation, before you get things added onto you, you got to shed a few things. And I wasn't ready for the shed. 2023 was a transitional year for me, and not one where a lot of things were added to me, though great things were added to me at the end. But I lost a lot. Even just going through the process of coming back into the inner circle, and from what it looks like to how it is now, and I'll get into it, I think, with time. Y'all will know. Don't be in my business. But yeah, I think transitions for me is something I was very much unprepared for. But I learned through it all, like, you gotta embrace it. Because at the end of the day, if you allow yourself to stay stuck and be stagnant, or if you allow yourself to shrink, you will never discover who it is that you can actually be on the other side of it. And for me, that is my motivating factor every day. Because there is a version of me I haven't yet met on the other side, I keep going, even when I don't want to. There are days I wake up and I'm like, I'm not doing nothing today. But you know what I also learned in 2023? That when you have faith, like some real faith, like a version of faith is rest. Like, trusting that God is still working when you're resting. And I had to learn the power of rest this year, because that's how I could heal. That was the only way that I could take the time to slow down and actually go through the process of what I was feeling. Like, you cannot process your emotions. Okay, I'm gonna give it a little 30 minutes and then I'm gonna go work for 16 hours. You're not healing. We can't heal that way. So I learned how to slow down and to really allow the transition to actually transform me. And I'm on my way. I'm not gonna sit here and be like, yeah, I'm fully transformed and I've fully transitioned. No, I haven't. Girl, I'm going through it every day. But the idea of just getting up and showing up is something that I had to learn, because it is hard. And when you lose as much as I've lost, and even as much as you may have lost in your season of transition, you want to give up. And there are often times where you want to just throw in the towel. Like, how can I do this without this? And what I learned is, when it comes to faith, there's 3 levels of faith. I learned this during Miracle Week at my church. There is the faith to, how's it go? Hold on. Oh, I gotta figure it out. There's the faith to work. There we go. So, like, you know how they say work, like faith without works is dead. So, you know, you got to do the work. But the part, and we all know that part. Let's just get that. We all know that you got to work in faith. But the part that we oftentimes skim over is you got to wait. Like, there is a wait that comes through faith. Like, in the process of faith, there's working, but there's also waiting, having enough faith to wait. And I feel like that's become more of a topic of discussion over the last few years. But this last one took me out. And it is faith for the way God is going to do it. So we can work as much as we want to work, and we can wait as long as we want to wait. But if he says, no, not this way, what are you going to do? Nobody talks about how even though you plan, you got to throw out the plan sometimes. Like he said, write the vision, make it plain. He wrote it. I wrote it. It's here. But sometimes that is not the way God's going to do what he's going to do. And I had to learn that the way, even today, okay, the idea I had in my mind of how everything was going to come together wasn't the way it came together, but this exceeded my expectation. And I realized that it's not always 15 people and 30 hands that you need. Sometimes you just need a small few that believe in what you're doing to really put their hands to the soil. And that's what I did today. I had faith that whatever was going to be, was going to be. And my mentor messaged me this morning. I said, whatever will be, will be. But either way, it's going to come together because the instruction was to do it. So when you have the instruction to do it, be okay with doing the work that you think you're supposed to do. Be okay with knowing that you have to wait sometimes, and things in the waiting season, things are being shed. You're learning new things, you're unlearning old things. That's fine. But also be okay in the way in when it comes to faith with navigating that the way things may take place may be very different from what you think or how you think it's going to take place. It's being okay with knowing that at the end of the day, I'm getting my instructions from the blueprint, who is God, and however it's going to happen, it will be. So whatever will be, will be. Y'all, don't think I forgot. I got 20 things for y'all about what I learned these last 20 years, and I'm going to be sharing those with you in the next episode. Stay tuned. I'll see you next week. Bye.